afternoon, everyone. I'm Paula Voce. Welcome to the Future Health Research and Innovation Fund Open Day in our spectacular Southwest. And it's put on a show today, I'm sure. I'd like to acknowledge the Minister for Medical Research, Science and Innovation, the Honourable Stephen Dawson. Welcome. Rebecca Tompkinson, Chair of the FHRI Fund Advisory Council, Kane Blackman, Member of the Advisory Council, special guests and VIPs. Great that you can be part of today's exciting program. The FHRI Fund has injected a massive amount of funding into the health research and innovation sector since our last open day in December. Some of those recipients will be announced later today. We'll be launching the Office of Medical Research and Innovation's WA Clinical Trials Roadmap, which will translate medical advances into bedside care. For our official welcome to country, please put your hands together for Wadandi Cultural Custodian, Sharnae Watson.
Kaya, Nuk Wadandi Bojanyaning. Welcome, you are sitting on Wadandi country. We'd like to acknowledge the elders, past, present and future, of the traditional custodians of the land that we've gathered on, the Wadandi saltwater people. These are my people. We live by 6 seasons, using the land as an indicator of which season we are in. This season is Duran, and Duran is April through to May. During this season, you'll notice that the hot weather has now begun, has now slowed down, and the cooler weather's now begun. Sorry. There's now a dewy presence in the morning, which also shows us that this is now the change of the season. We also call this the season of adulthood, or ants season. As you'll notice, there's lots of flying ants throughout this season. We also will see lots of red flowers out on country during the season, and you'll notice some of the red flowering gums or the summer flame now flowering. Traditional foods that we would eat during this season were root bulbs, fresh water fish, frogs and sometimes turtles. As the season progressed on, we would now start altering our traditional housing called mai-mais, changing it from a more of a summer style. So we would use the wanang, the peppy tree, as the frame, and would use the leaves off the wanang as the shelter for letting the breeze come through during summer. And as we begin to enter the cooler weathers, we would change it to using paper bark, as paper bark is naturally water resistant. Yes, please have a lovely day and enjoy your time here. And remember to always respect and care for country, and in return, country will respect and care for you. Borawa.
Well, thank you, Sharnae, for that lovely welcome to country. We're privileged to be here on Wadandi Noongar Budja today, and I'm sure that we'd all like to give our respects and our thanks to all of your people for having us here today. My name is Richard Marsh. I have been on the board or advisory board of the Busselton Population Medical Research Institute over the last 10 years, and we are very pleased to be co-host today here with FHRI. Thank you so much. And I'd also like to say a welcome to all the people from Busselton that are here, and welcome those that aren't to this area as well, from our team, from our volunteers, from our participants, from our staff. FHRI Fund Open Days mark the start of each new funding cycle and offer the opportunity for previous FHRI recipients to showcase their work and for new recipients to be announced. The theme of today's event is clinical trials, translating medical advances into benefits. But before we go into the presentations and discussions today, I've just got a few things to point out. First, I'm sure a number of you have already managed to find out that the facilities for toilets and so forth are down this hall towards the end and on the right. But most importantly, if there is an emergency, we have the doors open here. And so we would just ask people to calmly exit out of this room, move through the foyer, out to the grass by the driveway at the front as the mustering point if there was an emergency. The staff of the venue will direct us. Now, it gives me great pleasure to welcome the Minister for Medical Research, the Honourable Stephen Dawson. He has been a great supporter to the medical research community. I note that as he goes on and has greater success within the government, he grasps tightly the medical research portfolio within his portfolio, and we really appreciate it. You know, Busselton, amongst many other people, owe you a great vote of thanks, and your teams in the Advisory Council and OMRI, who really give us all so much great support. So I would ask you now to welcome the Minister. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Richard, and good afternoon, everybody. I too want to acknowledge that we're on the land of the Wadandi people today. Pay my respects to elders past, present, emerging, and thanks Sharnae for her welcome today. Can I also acknowledge a number of people? Obviously, everybody is a VIP here today, but I want to acknowledge the Mayor of the City of Busselton, Phil Cronin, who's here with us today. Can I acknowledge Rebecca Tompkinson, the Chair of the Future Health Research Innovation Fund Advisory Board, and Kane Blackman, a board member. To the team from Busselton, thank you, Richard, Alan and team. Thanks very much for your ongoing amazing work in this space, but also for co-hosting today. And can I acknowledge my team at OMRI, the Office of Medical Research and Innovation at the Department of Health. And sorry, the Honourable Barry House is here too. I should acknowledge Barry as a former Member of Parliament as well. It gives me great pleasure to welcome the first Future Health Research Innovation Fund Open Day for 2025, and it's lovely to be back in the southwest of the state. The Cook Government, through various initiatives, has been a long-time supporter of the Busselton Health Study, with support most recently provided through our fund's WA Cohort Studies Operational Support Programme. Very pleased to announce, I think yesterday we told the study that will provide funding of $339,000 for the upcoming year, so congratulations. Hopefully that helps you continue to do the great work that you're doing. But we're also excited to announce, thank you. We're also excited to announce the outcomes of the latest round of that program later today. Now, it was the foresight of a Busselton GP almost 60 years ago to survey and to collect human biological samples from this community, and also the dedication from health workers and the multitude of volunteers that has led to this extraordinary collection of human samples and health data that we have today. OMRI, our Office of Medical Research and Innovation, continues to work very closely with the health study, drawing on its expertise in managing a large biobank to support development of a blueprint for a state biobank in Western Australia. And of course, researchers from around the world have used the Busselton Health Study to advance the understanding of disease, genetics, and environmental factors that influence health. The study recently received a prestigious honour, named in the top 10 best programs by the National Health and Medical Research Council, so congratulations. And we'll hear more about the Busselton Health Study a little bit later on. Every year, a Future Health Research Innovation Fund, or FHRI Fund, Open Day, is held in a rural, regional or remote location. And that's to reflect that the fund, one of the fund's focus areas is of Aboriginal, rural and remote health. Open days like this are regular features in the annual calendar, and they provide opportunities for WA's health and medical research and innovation sector to share the state's exciting health, but also medical research and innovation developments across Western Australia to promote and also to network with other members of the sector. The events are also an opportunity to engage with members of the Fund Advisory Council and our OMRI staff to learn more about the fund and its programs and initiatives that get launched every cycle, and also to publicly recognise the recipients of recently closed projects and initiatives. Since our last open day in November, I'm very pleased to announce that $47 million has been awarded to 108 recipients across 12 funding rounds. Now, in this funding cycle, funds have been distributed through several initiatives, and they include our Research Infrastructure Support Programme, which supports the direct or the indirect costs of research. We have a new partnership with the Cancer Research Trust, which together with the FHRI Fund will provide a combined $9 million for cancer research. We have the inaugural Targeted Call Health System Solutions Program, and that'll provide innovative solutions to business challenges identified by WA health service providers. And this program reinforces our commitment to accelerating innovative solutions for our hospital system to improve outcomes for its patients, and it really is an example of how we can bring agility to government procurement. Overall, since the fund was started in 2020, about $251 million has been awarded to 745 grant recipients, a significant number. Now, the Fund Advisory Council is busy developing our next fund strategic framework, and I want to thank people in this room who have helped contribute towards this. Opportunities for further engagement through a survey are still available, and we have the team here who are running our survey, so they will get a chance to talk to you later on, but I'd love people before they leave today to fill in this survey, because your feedback helps us make sure that we're going in the right direction. Now, you've heard about FHRI Fund grants support and how they support our dynamic and vibrant health and medical research sector in WA. An essential component of our health and medical research pipeline are clinical trials. Clinical trials enable us to translate our research discoveries into benefits, and they can transform lives, particularly the lives of Western Australians and our loved ones. With a significant proportion of our grants supporting WA's clinical trials and the science that underpins them, it's fitting that today's theme is clinical trials translating medical advances into benefit. An essential component of high-performing health system clinical trials improve health and well-being, enable earlier diagnosis, support the development of more effective but also kinder treatments with fewer side effects, and improve disease prevention. We want Western Australians to have access to the best clinical trials in the world, and that includes the latest medical discoveries. For many people, access to clinical trials offers hope, especially to patients who have exhausted all treatment options, offering access to the latest cutting-edge treatments, but also interventions before they are available more widely. Clinical trials allow specialists to enhance how care is delivered in our hospitals and improve the sustainability of our health system. And as global demand for health services increases, we need brilliant minds to keep pushing the boundaries and to explore new frontiers. We, WA, is the home of many world-leading researchers, and by harnessing the skills of our talented investigators and empowering clinical trials teams, patients will undoubtedly benefit from the latest breakthroughs and interventions that are made here in WA. International researchers recognise the high-quality patient care in Australia, and that attracts them to bring their clinical trials here, and it also helps contribute to the advancement of scientific knowledge worldwide. So with a vision of exporting homegrown opportunities nationally and internationally, Western Australia can continue to drive continuous improvements in specialised care. So there is a significant opportunity now to grow our clinical trials activity, to improve the health and wellbeing of our community, the quality of care delivered in our health system, and to create jobs and to boost our economy. So how do we achieve this bold vision? Well, a roadmap, a clinical trials roadmap that sets out an ambitious vision for Western Australia to have a thriving, to have an innovative, to have a networked, competitive and culturally safe clinical trials ecosystem where every Western Australian has access to world-class clinical trials that get embedded in routine clinical care. So I'm very pleased today to launch our WA Clinical Trials Roadmap. It is a bold plan for the state. It identifies key opportunities to achieve this vision, such as making clinical trials a core function of the health system, supporting and growing the clinical trials workforce, and connecting the ecosystem through digital innovation. It also charts a path to grow the visibility visibility and the reputation of WA's clinical trials sector, helps us spark new partnerships, and it helps make WA a sought-after clinical trials destination. For our community, the roadmap includes a clear goal: empowering consumers, so no matter where they live, to access clinical trials and to be involved in their design to ensure that the way clinical trials are run meet the needs of our community. Increasing the number of clinical trials in WA and improving access to these trials has the potential to save more lives and really to transform the quality of life of WA patients, but also their families as well. So the clinical trials roadmap was shaped by our state's clinical trials stakeholders, including many of you who are here today. Your knowledge and your insights highlighted challenges that needed to be addressed, and the practical solutions are now set out in this plan and will guide our next steps. And thank you again to each of you for your valuable contributions. Kane Blackman, one of our FHRI Fund Advisory Council members, will talk a little bit more about the roadmap later on and share some of his personal journey. And Kane, I certainly thank you for your involvement and look forward to hearing your story a little bit later on. But in closing, I really do encourage you all to have a closer look at the clinical trials roadmap. It's available on the Department of Health website and share it with your networks. We'll have some links around today you can help you get to easily. It is always a pleasure to be part of the Open Days. We do get to hear from expert speakers and network with WA's best and brightest researchers. And again, I want to congratulate all those FHRI Fund recipients who get some grants from today's meeting. I'm impressed when I hear the innovations that have the potential to make their mark in WA, but also nationally and globally. And I want to thank them, those of you in the room, for contributing to health and medical research and the innovations that we benefit from. Particular thanks again to the Busselton Health Study, to the participants of the study, because without you, we'd be much further behind than where we are today. So your selfless involvement really does make a difference, not only to our health system in Western Australia, but of course nationally and internationally. So congratulations, thank you for being involved. And I certainly look forward to hearing from our Honorary Lead, Stacey Waters, about the other FHRI Fund programme recipients and the initiatives that get funded today. With that, I'll finish now. Enjoy the afternoon. Thanks very much for coming out. Thank you.
Certainly an exciting time for the sector going forward. Thank you, Minister Dawson. Our next speaker has extensive experience in corporate planning and strategic business development. After joining the Busselton Population Medical Research Institute Board in 2015, he served as a Vice Chair from 2018 until last year. In 2024, he coordinated the Institute's strategic planning process and as Advisory Board member drives their Institute's revenue and stakeholder goals. To talk about stretching the research dollar further, please welcome Richard Marsh.
Thanks so much, Paul. It's a good thing, isn't it, to stretch the research dollar further. And specifically, I'm going to talk to you about how we do that through research-enabling platforms. Now, they are large cohorts that primarily support other researchers' projects. The benefits that we get from those, and I just want to point out that the three organisations in West Australia, obviously Busselton is one, but the RAIN study, and we've got some representatives here today, and also the Origin study over here, so thank you. So the three organisations are research-enabling platforms where our goal is to provide a lot of the data and a lot of the specimens that researchers require. And by not having to collect as much, they reduce the time of their projects. If you reduce time, we all know it's one of the biggest costs, so the cost of the project is reduced. If we can reduce the cost of enough projects by them working with the research-enabling platforms, then that means that the limited funds that people like FHRI and HMRC, Perrin have can stretch further because the demand on them is much less. So many more projects that otherwise would never occur can then be funded. if you look at the research enabling platforms in WA, the three I've mentioned, now we have data from 40,000 participants. There's a huge breadth and depth. Many thousands have come back several times over time to give us a longitudinal view of them. And then RAIN in particular has multi-generations that they are able to look at. We get a very high return rate, as many of the participants that are here today know, that we get around 80 to 90% return rate. So if you need to get 100 participants, instead of the normal 10 times factor where you've got to get 1,000 that you've got to approach to get 100 in, we only need to approach about 125. And you can imagine the cost of that recruitment is significantly reduced. We also have our biobanks, and the three organisations, RAIN, Origins and Busselton, now have 1.5 million samples that we have in storage. But many tests that have been done already over the years are already digitally recorded for other researchers to go back to. Of course, with that number of samples, the analysis that still can be done on DNA, RNA and metabolomics is a great opportunity for research going forward. I want to talk to you about some case studies that we've just completed and look at the cost difference between researchers going and getting their data and specimens from a research enabling platform as opposed to having to go and collect it themselves. The FHRI Research Support Program was the one that we focused on because I think it's got good application for everyone here. That had a grant cap of $3 million. It meant that people would be accessing data and samples from a WA research enabling platform, RAIN, Origins, Busselton. There were 51 applications and there were 4 successful grants. So I'm going to walk you through the case studies on those particular successful grants, the comparison between doing it themselves and collecting or getting the data from the research enabling platforms. So first of all, you'll see on the left there, those are the grant amounts given out by FHRI. The total was $2.7-ish million, which was great because it means 4 are funded and there's still $200,000 that is in the kitty to be then spread against other researchers. What I'd like to do now is show you the numbers we got, because we went out to those people, to those researchers you see on the screen, and said, can you please do a budget? If you had to collect that data yourself and the specimen yourself, what would it cost you? Now, I'll point out that each of these research projects actually have large numbers of participants that they have to go to. So the numbers will be quite large. If it was only 100, 200, 300, it'd be much smaller. But if we look at Dr. Hunter's long COVID project, the budget came out at $3.1 million. If all you remember from my presentation today is this moment with this slide as it is now, that will be important. Because essentially what you can see there, the $3 million, if you had to collect it yourself, you would have got one project, Dr. Hunter's. But FHRI was able to fund 4 projects because they went to the research enabling platforms to reduce that cost. And I think it's fairly obvious. Which would you prefer? Prefer 1 or 3 extra? The projects are the same, the work is the same, but the cost is much lower. So FHRI is able to stretch their funds to fund 4 projects, not 1. So what do the other budgets look like? And they were high in participant numbers, so I'm just really putting that caveat in. So Professor Steffens, $5 million. Professor Mackey's glaucoma, 4.2. And then Professor Morey with the RAIN study has over 3,000 participants. So wait for it, $8.5 million. You will not get that at most. But I think that the indications are that there's a significant, almost magnitude impact rather than percentages. And this is the reason why RAIN, Busselton and Origins are so important in being able to stretch that research dollar further, whether it's from FHRI, NHMRC, Perrin, whoever. Our job is to make sure the researchers can do it for less and many more people can be funded. That's our goal. The other thing I did look at was, he says, the time. If you look at each of the projects, they vary between 104 and 156 weeks working with the research enabling platform. Once we've done the research into how long that would have taken, the duration of the project, because you can stack many more people, it wasn't the same as the cost, but the average was very close to 300 weeks. So my message is this: if you're a researcher, please come to us and talk to us, RAIN, Origins, Busselton, and see how much we can reduce the time your project will take and the cost it will take. If you are a funding body like FHRI, OMRI, NHMRC, please encourage people that give you applications. Please say to them, have you been to an REP, who they are, and have you got a quote from them and what it would cost to do it through them? By doing that, I think that we all make sure that every dollar gets stretched as far as possible. My last message is, come talk to us. Thank you. I'd now like to welcome Professor Alan James. He is the chair of the Busselton Population Medical Research Institute.
Thanks, Richard. Ms. Dawson, Minister Dawson, members of OMRI and WACS, and guests. I'm going to give you an example of how a research enabling platform, the Busselton Health Study, played a pivotal role in the development of a new drug that will advance the treatment of asthma in Australia. This example readily applies to other platforms such as RAIN and Origins, as Richard's mentioned. Less than 2 months ago, the Therapeutic Goods Administration approved a new drug marketed by AstraZeneca as tezepelumab for the treatment of severe asthma. The story of the Busselton Health Study's role in the development of tezepelumab began in 1966 as the first Busselton population study. Interviews, tests, including breathing tests, and blood samples were collected from 95% of the adult population. Here we see the 27... Can you hear me all right? Here we see the 27 cross-sectional and longitudinal studies conducted in Busselton from 1966 to present day activity. The slide's a little bit fuzzy from stretching the research dollar further. The 1994 study assembled 5,909 available participants from any of the previous adult and childhood studies to repeat all measures and collect a new blood sample for genetic analyses. A separate family genetics study, seen on the left here, was undertaken and had already identified the first genetic variant for asthma using the genome-wide associated study approach, then in its infancy. In 2009, the data from that 1994 study were combined with the data from our colleagues in Canada and showed a link between a variant of the gene for thymic stromal lymphopoietin, I'll get you to say that later, TSLP, and linked it to diagnosed asthma and airway hyperresponsiveness. That's the characteristic physiological abnormality in patients with asthma. That had only actually been measured in a limited number of population studies at that time. In 2014, a newly developed antibody to TSLP was shown to be effective in a small group of patients with asthma, and 7 years later, a pivotal large-scale clinical trial showed that this antibody, now called tezepelumab, was effective in reducing exacerbations and improving lung function in patients with severe asthma. How does tezepelumab work? Here we see two airways, one from an individual without asthma and another from an individual with severe asthma. The latter shows increased thickness and inflammation of the airway wall and narrowing of the airway lumen. This schematic shows how insults, both allergic and non-allergic, can trigger the release of TSLP from the epithelial lining of the airway. TSLP in turn triggers processes leading to inflammation and thickening of the airway wall. Tezepelumab specifically targets TSLP and blocks these pathological effects and improves the quality of life for patients with severe asthma. In summary, the data from the Busselton Health Study from 1966 to 1994, combined with new genetic analyses, identified a treatment target, I should say, which has informed a new technology, monoclonal antibody therapy, which in turn has translated into a specific, safe and effective therapy for treating Australians with severe asthma, not only allergic asthma, but non-allergic asthma, for which there is no clear treatment available. These achievements show how research-enabling platforms combine longitudinal and cross-sectional data that match phenotypic and biospecimen information within individuals to build resources that can exploit existing and new technologies and technologies that were never even dreamed of at the time the data was collected, to enable new research collaborations and discoveries which translate to treatments and diagnostic to improve health outcomes. I'd like to thank Minister Dawson and his team at OMRI for driving the FHRI initiative and their ongoing support. Thanks also to WACS for housing the Busselton Health Study at their centre, and to Michael Hunter and his fantastic team down at the Busselton Centre. And lastly, thanks to the 30,000 or so participants who have contributed to the Busselton Health Study data. I'd like to dedicate this talk to Professor Bill Musk, who was present as a medical student at the first study. Thank you very much. It's my job to introduce the next speaker, Dr. Kirsten Peters, who will give another example of how we've used Busselton's study data to make new discoveries. She'll be up. She will hopefully be online.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am delighted to be presenting today, and I'd just like to extend a very warm welcome to the Honourable Stephen Dawson, VIPs, and all invited guests. So today I will be talking to you about translating research into real-world care, and specifically an example of a test called PromarkerD, which is a test for kidney disease. I'll start by saying that translation from research into a real-world clinical test takes time, and a lot of it. The PromarkerD test took a number of years. We went through multiple stages, including various validation studies, assay refinements, more than 10 peer-reviewed publications, testing in over 5,000 patients, and navigating regulatory reviews and commercialisation steps. But this journey is worth it because what starts as a discovery can ultimately change patient care. I just wanted to highlight that there are two key research approaches in the way that we study a disease, and these are clinical trials and clinical cohorts. Now, clinical trials are the gold standard for testing treatments. They control conditions very carefully and want to prove that an intervention works. Clinical cohorts, on the other hand, such as the Busselton Health Study and the Fremantle Diabetes Study, are different. They track people in the community over many years to see how diseases develop and who's at risk. But together, these two approaches can complement each other. Trials prove that treatments work. Cohorts show how diseases behave in the real world. Now, for PromarkerD, we needed large, well-characterised clinical cohorts that had long-term follow-up. And that's exactly what the Busselton Health Study and the Fremantle Diabetes Study provided. We used patient samples, blood samples, to help develop the PromarkerD test, which is a simple blood test that measures biomarkers, runs them through an algorithm, and then gives doctors a clear risk score to help guide care. Why did we look at CKD, or chronic kidney disease, in diabetes? Well, Well, CKD is a very common, silent and serious disease in people with diabetes. 1 in 3 people with diabetes will develop disease, and this is often with no symptoms until it's very well advanced. Early detection can prevent kidney failure and dialysis, which is very costly for both patients and the healthcare system. Yet, the current tests that are available cannot predict who's at risk. That's where PromarkerD comes in. It's a predictive blood test that identifies risk before symptoms appear. PromarkerD works by detecting unique protein signatures in the blood that are linked to kidney disease. And by identifying these biomarkers, using samples from Busselton and Fremantle cohorts, we were able to predict, detect, monitor chronic kidney disease much earlier than we otherwise would do. And thanks to resources like Busselton and Fremantle cohorts, we actually have a pipeline of diagnostic tests in areas of unmet clinical need. Cohorts give us access to diverse patient samples, rich clinical histories, and long-term follow-up. These are all essential to identify and validate biomarkers that may help us diagnose the disease. So without these cohorts, tests like PromarkerD would not be possible. Our journey with PromarkerD started way back in 2007 when Proteomics International joined forces with the then-named Centre for Food and Genomic Medicine. Our goal was to try and identify blood biomarkers that were associated with kidney disease in people with diabetes. And we used a large number of different cohorts, namely Busselton and Fremantle, and what we did was compare different clinical groups in each cohort and analyse thousands of proteins to ultimately identify 13 key candidate biomarkers that were linked to chronic kidney disease. And these biomarkers became the foundation of the PromarkerD test. PromarkerD is now a validated blood test that predicts a patient's risk of developing kidney disease in diabetes. It is launched in Australia and soon the US. It's backed by over 10 peer-reviewed publications and validated in more than 5,000 patients, including studies from Busselton and Fremantle. PromarkerD identifies risk early and allows treatment to be monitored over time. It outperforms current standard of care tests, which demonstrates clear clinical utility. Most importantly, it helps guide personalised treatment decisions and protects patients sooner than they otherwise would have been. So by combining world-class cohort studies with cutting-edge proteomics, we've developed a test that bridges research and real-world care. PromarkerD is an example of how long-term community studies like Busselton and Fremantle can directly improve lives today and shape the future of personalised medicine. And if you'd like to find out more, please scan this QR code. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Peters. Now, our next speaker has a first-hand account of negotiating clinical trials in the hospital system from his lived experience as a father of a child with a rare disease. A clinical trial steering committee speaker and FHRI Fund Advisory Council member who represents consumer involvement, please welcome Kane Blackman.
Thank you very much for having me here, and thank you for that wonderful welcome to country as well. I do love coming to Busselton. It's wonderful. It's one of the fastest growing cities in Western Australia and in the whole of Australia, and you can just see how many people here in the room to know the passion that you have for health outcomes. I want to acknowledge the 100 or so people are also online today. Busselton truly punches above its weight. And with another hat on, I'm also the CEO of Good Sammy Enterprises, and it was wonderful to open a store here just a couple of months ago ago as well. So, but today I'm talking to you as a father of a 10-year-old child with intellectual disability and a rare disease, Angelman syndrome. My son's name is Finn. Now, the bedrock of health and medicine is a diagnosis, and with one, effective treatments can be delivered. And these new or improved treatments often require a clinical trial to have first been performed to research or to test that treatment, to evaluate its effects on human health outcomes. Commercially, a clinical trial is critical to bring that treatment forward for the requisite approvals ahead of going to market. And for some in our population, involvement in a clinical trial is the only way ever to get access to treatment. And that is the case when there is no effective treatment or cure. And that's the case for my son, Finn, with Angelman syndrome, and for many people with undiagnosed diseases and rare diseases. Now, in some parts of Western Australia, we also punch above our weight in the clinical trial space. We have standalone excellent facilities such as Linear that focus on clinical trials for adults. We have wonderful evidence-based practices in the Children's Hospital with respect to oncology and a range of other disciplines. We have incredible institutions, the Kids Institute, Perrin, personalised medicine centres, Perkins, a whole range of these institutions that focus on clinical trials. And the benefits of trials are clear. We were fortunate to hear the Minister outline those before. They can change lives, they can save lives. But for many, clinical trials remain out of reach. And it is this cohort of people with rare disease, including my son Finn, that I wanted to focus on. Rare diseases in Australia represent a cohort of 2 million Australians, and there are 7,000 different rare diseases. In the US, they account for 2/3 of inpatient costs in hospital. They are responsible for 6 in 10 deaths in children, the biggest killer of kids. And in Western Australia, we have over 60,000 children with a rare and undiagnosed disease. Less than 5% of that cohort are able to access a treatment, as there are none. And so therefore, participation in a trial or receiving treatment as a result of a future trial is hope for those individuals and those families. That hope that gets them up in the morning and keeps them going. And that hope is the same hope that my family has held for Finn. He's 10. He's a cheeky 10-year-old that constantly pesters me for lollies and screen time. And he just happens to have a rare disease called Angelman syndrome at the same time. And I mentioned there is no treatment or cure yet. Now, Western Australia has never hosted a clinical trial for Angelman syndrome. Yet clinical trials for Angelman syndrome have happened in Queensland, in New South Wales, and in Victoria. So why is that? Why don't we have trials occurring in Western Australia for this syndrome compared to others? And what was it that required Finn and I to have to travel to Melbourne to participate in a clinical trial that saw Finn have to jump on a plane 5 times in 6 months, to have to miss 25 days of school, 20 days of work for myself, to have to miss birthday parties and swimming lessons and have an immensely disrupted routine to participate? Why did that occur? Well, it's perplexing to begin with because our health system very much has that goal to serve all children across WA so they can achieve their best health and wellbeing outcomes now into the future. Our research centres have that goal to find solutions to improve the health and happiness of all children and young people everywhere. But the simple answer is that that is not occurring for a range of people in our community. And we don't yet have that capability, capacity or intent for clinical trials as we do now. And because of it, kids have missed out on treatment in Western Australia. Now, not all families were able to travel to Melbourne to participate in that trial, so some missed out on treatment and the benefits that that treatment delivered. And so we are not serving all children and all adults equally so they can achieve their best health outcomes now and into the future. And as a consumer in the WA ecosystem of clinical trials, it can be unnecessarily complex. There is no front door. There are many different doors. They don't always lead to the same room. We have, as I said, over 5 institutions that are absolute leaders in clinical trials. However, there's not always a mechanism to talk amongst them. There's sometimes not a mechanism to advise patients of upcoming treatments, of upcoming participation in trial opportunities. We don't have enough principal investigators in the Western Australian health system to run those trials. We sometimes don't have enough nurse coordinators to support the trials that happen. Sometimes we don't have enough theatre capacity to contribute that to those trials that require it. And this means that sometimes we just cannot run the trials. And we have also a number of clinicians that wish to run trials but sometimes aren't able to find the capacity to do so. And what we see is families, therefore, having to advocate very strongly to those institutions to have a trial get up in Western Australia. They often have to fundraise directly. They often have to beg, plead and borrow to enable that to happen. They often have to act as the coordinators and the funders themselves. They often have to find the principal investigators themselves. And therefore, it places an additional burden on those families and individuals to deliver those outcomes, if they can be achieved at all. So we are missing out on those opportunities to improve health access to treatment of Western Australia. And as a state, we were told before about the excellent outcomes that trials can deliver. 1.6 billion to the Australian economy in 2022 was achieved because of clinical trials through direct expenditure and investment in clinical trials. That employs over 8,000 Australians. There is a tremendous opportunity for our state to attract pharmaceutical companies to the state to invest, an opportunity to build the capacity of our workforce by holding more clinical trials. And there hasn't been a genuine intent to address this until now. And I'm delighted that we've been able to deliver this clinical trials roadmap for Western Australia. Now, as a FHRI Fund council member, I've been a strong advocate for this initiative, for the significance to support Western Australia's clinical trials capability and capacity. This advocacy, of course, is informed by FIN, the challenges my wife Sarah and I and my family go through as well, but also the messages and stories we hear so frequently in our community by other people walking that journey as well. And this roadmap has a very bold vision that every Western Australian has access to world-class clinical trials that are seamlessly integrated into routine clinical care. To see that the roadmap representing the priorities voiced by the WA clinical trials sector, and the roadmap has been informed by extensive consultation that's involved one-on-one discussions, a workforce survey, consumer survey, and the project team that contributed to develop this had 30 hours of one-on-one interviews with state and national clinical trials stakeholders. And the sector engaged very enthusiastically in these engagement attempts, in the surveys, in the one-on-one meetings, and contributed to over 200 responses that led into the development of this roadmap. That saw parent reference groups, it saw reference groups like the Angelman Syndrome Association of WA getting involved and voicing their desire to see more trials run for rare diseases and other treatment types in Western Australia. Now, further consultation on the roadmap was also undertaken with those project steering committee members, of which there were over 10. I'd like to acknowledge their contribution as well. And once the draft was even produced, it then went out for further consultation as well to those stakeholders and to Western Australia's Health Executive Committee. So there's been extensive eyes and fingers and blood, sweat and tears that have gone into the roadmap. And I'm delighted that Honourable Minister for Medical Research, Stephen Dawson, that his leadership and his bold vision to put a stake in the ground and say this is where we want to go for clinical trials and this is the benefits that it can deliver. And we've heard that eloquent description of the importance of those trials. So thank you, Stephen, for your leadership in this space. And what we want to see in this area effectively is more trials, more participants, a roadmap that sees more pharmaceutical companies come to Western Australia to spend their dollars here. We want to see no child missing out for the treatment that they need, not having to jump on a plane interstate or overseas or making those decisions, but being able to access a trial where they live. We want to see that thriving ecosystem for clinical trials. We want to see Western Australia as the place to do business for pharmaceutical companies with respect to clinical trials, a centre of excellence in this regard. So we want to be bold, and the trial roadmap sets out a range of key themes to achieve that. I just wanted to talk through a couple very quickly. It has 4 key themes, the roadmap. The first is driving the embedding of clinical trials in healthcare delivery through organisational culture and corporate governance. The second one is supporting and enabling the clinical trials workforce, investigators and consumers to actively engage with clinical trials. This needs to be part of business as usual, not something extra that people find hours in the day to try to do. Number 3 is connecting and leveraging the clinical trials ecosystem through world-class infrastructure and integrated systems that are available to all. And fourthly, to grow the visibility and reputation of the WA clinical trials ecosystem. Each of those themes has a goal, and each of those themes has a series of objectives that will follow that effectively are there to bring the sector together to build our capacity, capability and appetite to deliver more clinical trials. So for the community and those that contributed, this one's for you. And for all those people with loved ones that want to see a trial, this one's for you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kane. That was a very real, very human connection and story that you told with your experience with Finn. I think there's a lot of appreciation around the room, and you can see exactly why you've got so much passion for this. And the result being that there's now a roadmap that you've walked us through to try and, I suppose, give other people the same opportunity to have the results that you've been looking for, I think is wonderful. So thanks so much for sharing that. It's very real. Thank you. I'd now like to welcome Dr. Stacey Waters from the Office of Medical Research and Innovation, who will tell us more about the FHRI Fund, announce the latest round of FHRI Fund recipients and announce new programs that are opening for applications today. Please welcome Stacey. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much everyone for coming along today. It's a really tough act to follow that, Kane. I have got the boring bits now, but how lucky are we to be led, have people like Kane on our advisory council guiding the decision making around how we invest this $1.8 billion sovereign wealth fund that we are so fortunate to call Western Australia's. Thank you, Kane, for everything that you do on the advisory council, but certainly what you also did for us during the clinical trials roadmap. For those of you who are online, and there's around 100 of you, what you can't see is what's in front of me, which is almost about 100 other people sitting in the room here today, mostly made up of both volunteers and participants in the Busselton Health Study. For us as researchers and innovators and policymakers and government officials, we can't do health and medical research. We can't run clinical trials. We can't look for advances in healthcare and in improving the lives of people without community members like you who freely give your time and your effort and your passion to advancing medical research. So can I ask, for those of you in the room who are not involved in the Busselton Health Study, can we just take a moment to thank and congratulate those in the room who are part of the study? There's not a single one of the researchers who I'm going to talk through today who could do the work that they do without people like you. So thank you. So I have the great privilege today of giving you a little bit of information around the FHRI Fund, and just a reminder for those of you who aren't across the FHRI Fund, this is a state-owned sovereign wealth fund. It is the only one of its kind in Australia. It was created in 2012 and it repurposed the WA Future Fund legislation. We now have protected funding. It's a $1.8 billion sovereign wealth fund that contributes to health and medical research and innovation in Western Australia. It puts us on the map, and I can assure you that other states and territories and the researchers in those other states and territories are extraordinarily jealous of the ecosystem and the funding that we have available here in Western Australia. There are 4 really clear objects of the Act, and they are to improve the financial sustainability of our health system, to increase the economic prosperity of Western Australia through health and medical research, to advance our standing as exemplars and excellence in health and medical research and innovation, but above all else, to improve the health and wellbeing of all Western Australians, all of us included. We have an esteemed advisory council that lead and guide the Future Health Research Innovation Fund. You will have seen Rebecca, who unfortunately had to leave us earlier, but is the chair of our advisory council, Kane, who you have all seen and heard from today, and a range of other stakeholders. Some of those you will recognise names. They're very publicly and well-known figures in our industry, are guiding the day-to-day decision-making around the FHRI Fund, and we're extraordinarily grateful for their input. The Advisory Council has a very simple goal, really. They're there to help develop the FHRI Fund's strategy, its focus areas and priority goals to ensure that we make funding decisions that best benefit Western Australians. They then guide us on the application of how we spend the money in the FHRI Fund and make recommendations for programs through to the Minister for Medical Research. We've kept the Advisory Council very busy these last few months. They're focusing on two key things. We've just completed our first evaluation of the FHRI Fund. It was an independent 3-year evaluation, the outcomes of which have been presented to our Advisory Council, and we'll be publishing the outcomes of the evaluation soon, along with the implementation plan that the Advisory Council have agreed to help us make improvements to the way in which we run the FHRI Fund. But most importantly, we've been embarking on the development of a new FHRI Fund strategy, which we hope to launch in the coming months to you. We met as a council again this morning and had a look at a near final draft, but it's not too late. So if you would like to have your say in how we can improve and how we can develop the FHRI Fund strategy, this QR code will take you through to a webpage where you can complete an online survey. Those QR codes are available. My team will have access to them afterwards. So if you'd like to either have a conversation with us around the strategy and what should be included, or you'd like to get access to the QR code, please don't hesitate to come and see myself or one of my team at the end of today's session. Actually, go back if I can. Before I move on, I will just say the strategy is close to being launched. We have obviously some final commentary we're seeking from the stakeholders. We are hoping to launch the strategy in the coming months. We're also doing a whole lot of work in the background to set ourselves up to have really good governance behind the FHRI Fund, or strengthened governance, to think through an investment plan which will actually give certainty to the sector for how we're going to fund, what programs and initiatives we're going to fund, and how that's going to contribute to our new strategy. So there's a lot of work happening in the background. We do hope to come out to you, our sector, in the coming months with this new strategy, and we really look forward to the opportunity to celebrate that with you and to look forward to how we're going to continue to support health and medical research and innovation. Before I launch into the funding recipients in the latest round of the FHRI Fund, I just wanted to have a shameless plug for all of the activities that are happening within our Office of Medical Research and Innovation, because they're all really important and they dovetail with and underpin the funding that we provide through the FHRI Fund. We've already heard around the clinical trials roadmap, and I'll share the slide again with you in a moment, so I'll skip on from that one. But the team are working really closely with the research enabling platforms, with Busselton, with Origin, with RAIN, to start to think about what might a statewide biobank look like. How can we leverage the incredible amount of information, samples, data, all the things that we've collected from 3 of our leading cohort studies, but there are others that are around as well. How do we bring those together? How do we provide one front door, for want of a better word, where researchers can identify the types of samples and information that is already held to help them create new research questions they could never possibly achieve because it's too expensive to go and prospectively collect those data. So we're now working with our leading cohort studies to start to think about what might a statewide biobank look like and what could that do to really position Western Australia as a leader in health and medical research and innovation. So we're continuing those conversations with our sector. We've heard a lot today around translation and making clinical trials accessible and then embedding those into usual care. Our team's now starting to think through how do we better support the WA health system and the private health system in Western Australia to take on those research findings, to then implement them into the way in which we deliver care to every single one of you every single day of the week. We've also done a lot of work around reforming our ethics processes. So those of you in the research and innovation space will all have had the joy of completing an ethics application or two in your time. We've spent a lot of time now really trying to unpick that and centralise ethical review for Western Australian public health system so that we can decrease the amount of time it takes to get research to approval and streamline that process and make WA a great place to come and do research because we've streamlined it, we've centralised it, and we're going to give you better, consistent, more timely reviews. My team are starting to now really think through how we better support innovation, and you will have seen some recent ministerial announcements around a precinct that we are looking to establish at the UWA QE2 site. We have working with UWA and CSIRO to see how we can activate a big site in Floreat, which has potential for us to be able to scale up our incredible medical research institutes and our incredible medical research startups to see how they can have a better footprint in Western Australia, in Perth, to help them with their manufacturing and their really the growth and scale of those medical research initiatives. And we're also now have launched recently, through the help of our comms extraordinaire, a Omri newsletter called Inspire. If you are part of our sector and you want to know more about what's happening in this space, we hope that you will have subscribed to our newsletter. We'll continue to provide you with a monthly update of all the great things that we're doing, but also all of our researchers and innovators across Western Australia will be sharing their journeys and their exciting news. So the clinical trials roadmap, as you've already seen, is a piece of work that Mel, who none of you can see this right here, but Mel Boss from my team, this has been her passion project for the last 12 months, is extraordinarily proud, as she should be, of the work that we've contributed here. Our goal is to make sure that WA is a place of choice to come to do clinical trials, that every child and every parent and every community member, if there's a clinical trial with a new treatment that's going to help and improve your health and wellbeing, that you have access to it, and you have access to it in our public health system in a timely way that's going to provide you with the best possible health outcomes. That's our goal. We've got a whole lot of ambitious things that we'd like to do to get ourselves to that space, but the really exciting piece is the sector have come together, and the sector want to do this together, and the health system in particular is really quite passionate and excited about this opportunity. So we're looking forward to now really getting our hands dirty, looking through what the implementation plan looks like, and we'll continue to talk through what our next steps are with you. I now get the great pleasure of announcing our FHRI Fund grant recipients. Now, there's a number of them because we have not had an open day for quite some time. So I have the great privilege, I think it's nearly $47 million worth of research funding that I get to announce today. So two big announcements from the very beginning. One of the big pieces of work that we are trying to do is lift WA's capacity to win nationally competitive grant funding programs. And to do that, we provide some in-principle support to our leading researchers to say, we'll give you some funding to help you go and win that national grant. It's been an extraordinarily successful program, and I'm pleased to say that one of our in-principle support applicants, Professor David Preen, was successful in taking $1 million from the FHRI Fund and going to the NHMRC, National Health and Medical Research Council, and seeking match funding. And so he's now won a National Health and Medical Research Council grant that is now coming to Western Australia and is going to improve our track record, and clearly really important piece of work. A similar applicant is Dr. Amy Page from the University of Western Australia, who also sought $1 million in funding from us and was able to seek almost $2 million worth of funding from the NHMRC. So a great example of how we in the state can provide that in-principle support to attract greater national funding. We've also been able to provide some funding support to Harry Perkins Institute of Medical Research to, again, match some leverage funding through the Commonwealth, through what's called the NCRIS, or the National Collaborative Infrastructure Strategies. So again, this is about buying and implementing key research infrastructure in Western Australia. The state's put some money in, but so has the Commonwealth, and so we're really excited to support Harry Perkins Institute of Medical Research with this grant. We've also been doing a lot of work to try and co-fund and co-partner in funding programs. So it's not just the FHRI Fund dollar that's going to fund health and medical research and innovation. We're trying to match that with other funders in the state. So we're really excited to announce a co-funding partnership with the Cancer Research Trust, and those grants are opening today as well. So I'm going to show you what those new grant opportunities are in a moment. But we provided $4.5 million over 5 years with co-funded with the Cancer Research Trust. So we're now making $9 million available to cancer researchers in Western Australia through a co-funding partnership program. We've also introduced a really new program. So while the Cancer Research Trust, we just awarded a $4.5 million grant to, we've also just provided $25,000 grants to individual researchers to help them start conversations with consumers before they embark on their research project. So our huge congratulations go to these researchers who have had the thought and the interest and the impetus to say, I need to speak with consumers before I go any further. I need to speak with people like you to understand what you really want to see in my piece of research. And I'm really proud. These are such small grants, but they're so incredibly important because they're bringing consumers on the journey at the outset. So my congratulations go to these researchers who have won funding to be able to come and speak with their consumers and develop their next grant funding program. We also have the great privilege of providing funding to our researchers who have applied for national funding, may have missed out on those funding opportunities. We then as a state provide them with some match funding to give them a little bit of a leg up, to give them the opportunity to do a little bit more work on their project and hopefully make them more successful in their next round. So my congratulations go to these researchers. The top 3 researchers listed there, we're providing full funding for them to actually conduct their research project that was just missed out on national funding. And the other applicants, we provided $100,000 to allow them to do a little bit more work to make sure their application in the next round has a greater chance of success. And there's a second page. So these researchers all were in a fundable range at the national level, but just missed out on receiving that national funding. So we hopefully will provide all of these researchers with a better opportunity to be funded in the next round. Similarly, another national funding round is the Ideas Grants with the NHMRC. Again, we have awarded a number of applicants who were deemed fundable, but just outside the funding range with their national application, and they've now all received $100,000 to help them build their research project and be successful in the next round. There's 2 pages of these as well. We've also, yesterday, I think, our organisation's Romola's nodding, so it's a definite yes. We have provided $25 million to our research organisations in Western Australia to help provide funding for the indirect costs of research. We quite often will have, researchers will win funding from nationally competitive funding programs, and it's not enough to actually conduct the research. So through the Future Health Research Innovation Fund, we commit $25 million and have provided that proportionally across these different organisations to help them make sure that the true cost of research is actually funded. So congratulations to all of our universities, our medical research institutes and our hospitals who've now received funding. And a particular call out to Linear Clinical Research who have been added to this program for the first time. So they have received some infrastructure funding from the FHRI Fund also. And again, yesterday, I think it might have been, or the day before, we announced funding to our cohort studies. So Busselton, as the Minister mentioned earlier, have received some funding for this next financial year, along with some other cohort studies here. So again, you can see how the FHRI Fund is providing support to our really important cohort studies to help them continue to do the work that they're doing, to help them make sure that we can keep the freezers on and we can keep the staff we need to continue to collect the data. So for those of you in the room from the Busselton Health Study, you'll be pleased to see that we have supported the health study to the tune of over $339,000 for the next financial year. So hopefully that is a huge benefit. We also announced recently our Stage 2 applicants for our Innovation Challenge using generative AI, and these are applications that are far beyond my capability and skill set, but there's some brilliant minds in Western Australia, and we're really excited to support these 4 people in particular who are really looking at generative AI and building that into health and medical research and innovation activities. Mostly, actually, all 4 of them are from our different universities. We also recently released a program called a Targeted Call Health System Solutions. So we said to all of our public health hospitals, what's your biggest challenge? Tell us what it is. We'll see if we can get some brilliant minds to come in and help you solve them. And that's what we've been able to fund today. So each of our different health system identified a different health challenge that they really wanted help solving. We've then matched them with some innovators who are going to help them take that issue and turn it into a research and innovation activity that will allow them to hopefully improve the way they deliver healthcare. And you can see the range of different activities we've funded there, some that are looking at emergency department wait times and how they can better serve people in emergency departments. We've looked at a virtual immunology clinic. There's a range of different solutions here. Our hope is that these then get embedded into usual care and spread across the entire health system should they be successful. And finally, or not finally, almost finally, we have announced our Innovation Fellowships for 24-25. So this is a 6-month full-time or 12-month part-time fellowship, which actually provides people with a little bit of time in their work life to be able to focus on innovation and build their skills and capacity for innovation. And it's great to see that we've been able to support people across our universities and our health system. So they were all our recipients. We've awarded a lot of funding over the last couple of months, and it's so great to be able to celebrate with you all and see, and we're really looking forward to seeing the benefits that this funding brings to you. We do have a couple of programs that we are launching today. Because we have developed a new strategy, or developing a new strategy, we're not launching a large number of programs today, but we are opening some programs that are really beneficial and sort of landmark programs for the sector, as well as some of our co-funding partnership program. So we're really proud to announce that we have entered into a co-funding partnership program with Cystic Fibrosis WA. Both organisations have co-funded this, and we now have funding that's available, as you can see on here, for researchers investigating cystic fibrosis. There's a Research Innovative Grant and a Collaborative Grant. More information is available on the Cystic Fibrosis website and our FHRI Fund website through that QR code, and you'll be able to go onto our website at any point in time and have a look at the details of those funding programs. But I really hope that we will be able to spark and improve the research that's happening in the CF space. We've also co-funded a new grant funding round with the Hospital Research Foundation Group, and really excited about this. There's multiple opportunities again in this co-funding program. The one that's open at the moment are some early to mid-career research fellowships in preventative health for priority populations. We're really trying to target building fellowships for our emerging early mid-career researchers in areas that are really important to us, which is preventative health and in priority populations. There's also going to be a funding program coming soon around innovation in precision medicine as well. QR code links will take you through to those web pages. We're also really proud to be co-funding with the Cancer Council WA, again joining forces, leveraging the funding, doubling the amount that's available. There's a range of different funding programs here that we've co-funded with the Cancer Council WA. I won't go through them all, but we're really trying to support mid-career researchers, senior career researchers, our PhD students, investigators, capacity building. There's a range of different opportunities that we've come together to be able to co-fund, again supporting cancer research in Western Australia. We're also opening up our near miss awards. Again, I announced our recipients a moment ago, but this is now the new program that's open. If you are a researcher in our community, if you have applied to the NHMRC for their Emerging Leaders program and you are fundable but not funded, again, we'll be able to provide you with some funding support to help you make your application competitive at the next application stage. So applications close in June. It's all linked to the timing of the NHMRC awards. We'll be awarding about 2 or 3 fellowships, and the rest of the grants will be $100,000 grants to help you make your application competitive. The whole idea is that you will resubmit in a 2026 round and help build Western Australia's track record and success rate nationally. We're also opening up our really successful major research and innovation application support program. Again, we're trying to build our success rates nationally. If you're applying for a nationally competitive grant, that is through NHMRC or ARC or others, you can come to us first. We'll provide you with some in-principle funding to help strengthen your application and make it more likely that you'll receive that funding nationally. This program is open until the 12th of June, and it's very much tied to the nationally competitive grant rounds, which I have here. So we can provide in-principle funding support for you if you're applying to any of these nationally competitive programs. If you are applying to another nationally competitive program and it's not on here, you can contact my team in the office and we'll make sure we can consider whether or not we can support you, but we'll do whatever we can to make sure that we can support any application from a Western Australian researcher to build a nationally competitive success rate. And again, we're opening up the NCRIS partner program. This one is a little bit shifting a little bit, and there's certainly the people who work in the space and who understand the NCRIS program will know that the Commonwealth currently doesn't have a closing date or even an opening date for this program. So we are just wanting to make sure that we are open and ready when this program does open at the Commonwealth level, that you have access to matched funding through the FHRI Fund. This is a very targeted program, and we'll make sure we speak with those of you who are working in this space. And a reminder that the Distinguished Fellows program is still open. So for those of you in the room that haven't yet got an application, I'm sure there's one coming, Ramona. This is a really big funding program that the Advisory Council are really proud of. This is about attracting big research names back to Western Australia or to Western Australia. It's a large amount of money for these people to come and establish themselves in Western Australia, provide them with their salary, provide them with some research support around them and research funding to help them establish themselves in Western Australia and grow a new priority area of research. It does require some co-funding investment. It's been open now for a number of months. We're getting close to it closing on the end of June. But please, if you haven't already started thinking about your Distinguished Fellows application, and particularly if you're a university or if you are a medical research institute and you're looking to attract a big name to Western Australia, we've got a $5 million program on the table, and hopefully we can fund and support some and attract some incredible researchers to Western Australia. And lastly, it's not an FHRI fund, but it's certainly a really important funding pot. The state government co-funds with the Telethon Trust every year. We've now opened our WA Child Research Fund for this year's applications. These are funding programs a funding program that provides up to $600,000 for up to 3 years for any research that works with children and young people and explores opportunities to improve their health and wellbeing. It's a $4 million co-investment between the state government and the Telethon Trust, and those recipients will be announced at the Telethon Week later this year. So that's it from me today. It's been my absolute pleasure to be invited and welcomed. We had a conversation, I think it was last year, and you were very adamant that Busselton would like to co-host an open day. I'm so pleased that we've been able to make this happen. It's been an absolute pleasure seeing the actual faces of people who are absolutely engaged in medical research and innovation and at the coalface of that, and we're so grateful that you were able to come and be with us today. If you'd like more information around the FHRI Fund or just health and medical research in general, those QR codes will take you through to our web pages. Of course, you can contact my team at any point in time at the Office of Medical Research and Innovation. And a final shout out to my team. I just want to thank everyone for making this happen. I'm fortunate to have 2 new directors. Because of available seating, they're sitting outside, they are listening. So I'm just going to ask them to poke their head in. I hope they've been listening. Very fortunate, come back. So very fortunate to have an expanded leadership team here in the Department of Health, and we have Dr. Laura Kirkland, who is the Director of Research, and Adam James, Director Innovation. I can't see either of them, so I'm hoping they're there and they're not pulling faces at me. Can you please come in, because those people online can't see you. There's 100 people online. These are about two new directors there. It's basically the 3 of us now bringing the FHRI Fund to life, bringing the Office of Medical Research to life. We're here to build and support the WA ecosystem, and that is our sole job. We're here to help. We'd love to have conversations with you after today's event. For those of you online, if you haven't met yet Laura or Adam or me, drop us a line. We'd love to come out and see you. So thanks again for coming today and for your time. Thanks so much.
so much, Stacey. You know, the thing that certainly I really enjoy is just seeing the sincerity, the absolute sincerity you had both bookending at the beginning and at the end to thank all those people that contribute to, you know, this whole world we've got of supporting medical research in the state. So thank you so much for that. It's been a while, yeah, and my goodness, we will sit for another hour if you want to keep on telling us about more funds that have been given to other people. But we are so lucky to have, not lucky, it was planned. It was brought about by people that put an act in place and government making sure it happened. So, you know, $1.8 billion that sits there as a fund that then earns more money and will last forever so that we spend the earnings that come from it. Never enough money, is it? But we spend it responsibly and we see the wonderful areas that those funds are going and page after page after page. So I come back, when we get all our thanks for what we do, I come back to saying, Minister, thank you for driving this, for not wanting to let this little portfolio go, and I don't blame you, I would hang on to it tight myself. I want to thank Kane and all of the Advisory Council members for what they do in setting the strategy for this fund. It's so important. And then you personally for that wonderfully personal connection you gave us today and talking to us about the roadmap. And I'm not going on, but I mean, it's great to have a roadmap, know that it's got good direction and it's going to help many more people like Finn, okay, going forward. And then Stacey, she's already mentioned her team, but I've got to say that ourselves, and I know Romola from Rain and Jackie from Origins and many, many others, just find them wonderful team to work with. I'm almost going to say some names, but I better not in case I miss 30 of them. But we really appreciate what they do to execute the strategies and make sure that this all happens, that the money gets out and that it is run and the governance is all there. The one other thing I'll say is wonderful. We've done so well today. We're 6 minutes ahead of time. To the people that have rocked up, that have come down from Perth and other places, thank you so much. To the Busselton people who've come and shown their support by getting this room. I hope you've found it fascinating, interesting to see what you do has impact at the end of the day. So thank you pretty much to every damn last one of us sitting in this room. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to co-host. It's been appreciated. Thank you, everybody.